Hi everyone, I'm Teresa Teo, one of a tutor in Mark 2085. Let me introduce myself. I used to be in the fashion industry, specializing in brand management. The brands that I manage is like Timberland, Godiva, and Stride. Have you heard of them before? And those days, I really very passionate about brand management and really enjoy those days. And I started a new brand and also helped to revive a mature brand. So during those days, we faced a lot of uncertainties, especially during that time where e-commerce first started. There's a big threat to the retail industries. And a lot of retailers are wondering how this e-commerce internet boom itself affect our retail industries, especially brick-and-mortar stores. But today, I particularly like to highlight to you guys how companies manage the uncertainties, especially we have this recent big uncertainty, which is the COVID. All right, I will share with you what my observation is, how companies cope with them during the COVID and also post-pandemic. Finally, I also like to share with you is that with all these changes and uncertainty happening in the market, how does it impact you as a graduate? Before the COVID hits, e-commerce already started, right? So many companies are very half-hearted about going into e-commerce. Some of them are like for example, Myers, they'll just put some clothes just on the internet just to sell. All right, they think that is just what it means by online retailing. But then there are some new innovators, they actually have 100% online retailing, which is like iconic, and eBay, Amazon, all these are full range, 100% online retailer, all right? So this has already been happening for a while. But those companies who are half-hearted about it, they are like very strong in their brick and mortar stores, the retail stores. So moving into online is something very big for them. And to them, it's like, why do I want to change? And brick and mortar store will always be there. And I'm a well-known brand, heritage brand, nothing will happen to me. So rather they will take the approach that if it's not broken, why change? All right. And they just stay status quo because it's very stable for them. And then suddenly when COVID hits, things really happen. All right. So we're talking more about how do you manage uncertainty. So in here, I'm going to highlight to you the 6 strategies that we mentioned in the lecture. In our lecture, we talk about the 6 strategies to cope with uncertainties. I particularly like to highlight here is that during the COVID, here there are 6 strategies here is that face the fear, focus on what you do, mitigate the risk, be agile, and alert, look after yourself, and manage your expectation. So during the COVID itself, when the company is faced with a big uncertainty where everywhere is locked down, government coming very hard on all the retailers and all the companies, everything's supposed to be locked down. So I've never seen a case like this in history before, okay, where everything stands still. It's just a very phenomenal sight, actually. All right. And then that during the COVID, we've all gone through, all right, where suddenly customers become digital, right? They start buying online, and then the e-commerce, suddenly there's a boom. All the customers, they can't shop elsewhere, they start going online, and all those brick and mortar stores, as the retailers are beginning to realize that, hey, I'm going to miss out a big pie. But what can you do? It's too late, all right? And this is a boom time for those online retailers, okay? And another thing is that, what the businesses are really unsure is, how long is this COVID going to last? The lockdown was it opened and it's locked down and it start opening again. So it created a lot of disruption to the company. And of course, you realize that a lot of people are working from home and then they're not traveling, and you suddenly realize that the rural area, the nearby shopping centers start booming instead of the city, and the city is really like a dead town. So this kind of scene is really very scary. And I was quite surprised that time when the first time I saw a little dog walking through the main road. It's just very interesting scene. Okay, I've never seen it in my life. And here, because of fear, all right, a lot of people are not able to react. Fear, sometimes you say that fear can paralyze oneself. So you really see at that time when companies face this situation, they stop everything. They are not investing. They have to close all they have to shut down their events, and the budget, there's a freeze for a moment. All right. And for a moment, the marketing manager start observing what is going on and what should I do. But then after a while, when you realize that things are going to be the same thing, yes, we know that there's a COVID hitting us. You're going to see at that point in time, I noticed a lot of events company start going online. They do virtual event, and that's how they cope with that COVID itself. So they focus on what they can do, right? If I can't do a physical event, I do a virtual event. And that's where it becomes like a lot of exhibition is done online. You know, it was quite surprising. I see how this Zoom suddenly booming, and it's like they create a lot of virtual event, allowing a lot of exhibitors to see the other competitors or even attendees, see other companies through the virtual event. And this virtual event become getting more and more sophisticated. They use the various kind of tools to engage the attendees. So I was quite surprised that they actually charge pretty high price. Okay. And on the other hand, you can see that for companies that cannot cope with the e-commerce, for example, the retailers, I also saw that a lot of heritage brand, okay, like a very well-known brand in America, 100 years of history is JCPenney, just closed down. So can you imagine, you heard a lot of stories about Titanic, right? We know about the story. Titanic is a big ship, okay? If you want them to turn, it's very hard. And if anything that's wrong, they worry they sink it, okay? So what they do, they don't change, all right? But when it hit one iceberg, that's where the Titanic sink, right? So now the big thing is when the COVID hits and customer turn digital, all the brick and mortar stores are closed, all right? The retailers are forced to close the shop. Where does the revenue stream come from? So that's where big companies like this face a big challenge, all right, about how I'm going to serve the customers if I don't have an online retail store. And for them to go to do that immediately is too late. And also their way of online retail will be very basic. So if you see some of those e-commerce stores are actually online retailers, they are all very sophisticated. With some of them, they have 360 photography of your clothes and things like that. So those who are latecomers may not be able to be a good match to all these established e-commerce retailers, all right? So what happened is, at the end of the day, you know, when we talk about what we can do, a lot of companies, even I want to also bring to highlight attention, actually, like even the restaurants. I noticed during that time, like when the customers can't go out for lunch or dinner, or they can't shop, what they do, most of the customers are actually buying online, buying from Uber Eats, and you see a lot of new brands like DoorDash and Menulog, all right, or Hungry Panda. And the whole idea is, and even Coles and Woolies start going online, right? And they do the click and collect. For them, it's pretty easy in a sense, but they are suddenly realize that click and collect will become a very important strategy for them for the delivery. And that is where they cope with the COVID during that time. But there's one thing I also want to highlight to you is when restaurants couldn't get physical diners to come to their restaurants, where are you going to get customers? So they all tap on Uber Eats, Menulog, or DoorDash. That's why this business is flourishing during the COVID lockdown. All right. But there's one thing that I also noticed, that Uber Eats is the one that charge a very high commission to the retailers, to the restaurant owners. Okay, they charge that up to 35%. I have a friend who actually runs a cafe, and he told me that, wow, Uber Eats is the one that charge the highest commission is 35%. So with this increased cost, to them is a big risk to their business and also high cost to them. What do? All right, in order to be able to cover costs, what they do, they pass it to the consumers, customers like you. You know, a normal plate of food is $10, could be increased to $15 or $13. If they pass on 100% to you, become $13.50, right? And one of the my friend was telling me that there's one very absurd example is there's a customer who ordered a cup of coffee. Coffee that time was only about $3 plus $4, right? And you know how much the total bill ended up to be with all these added costs? It was the whole total bill was $15. $15 for one cup of coffee, and customers just ordered just like that. I'm like, wow, okay. And these customers who pay for it didn't realize that all the costs from the business is passed on to them. Okay, and that's how companies at that time really mitigate their risk, reducing their loss. All right. And then what about how do they keep themselves agile and alert? Okay, during the time when now is actually when COVID are more steady and people are more aware what to expect from the COVID. And then at the tail end of COVID, when it ended, all right, we also noticed there's a lot of logistics problem, all right, supply chain problem. And that's where you know that we are now at the crux of it. You see a lot of costs have increased. Inflation has gone up. Prices of goods has gone up. The normal food prices easily increased by $5. All right, it's just amazing. All right, so across the board, companies are experiencing higher costs. All right, raw materials have increased, logistic costs have increased, all across the board, things have increased. So it's a lot of rising costs right now. So to stay afloat, all right, they have to keep themselves alert of the cost. And in fact, many companies right now are looking at this rising costs and higher interest rate. What should I do? If you notice the news, in fact, you will notice that the tech companies are the ones that are retrenching people, which is to my surprise, you know. And they are like Amazon. If you heard the news, Amazon in 2022, they actually cut down 9,000 jobs. 9,000 jobs for Amazon all over the world. And you can see that these tech companies are seeing a gloomy future because of the economy. They are actually predicting a global recession, and there's an inflation and higher interest rates, over hiring of staff. When during the COVID itself, a lot of companies start retrenching people in order to keep themselves afloat. But then immediately after the COVID, they start hiring people because they are very lack of people. You know, when everybody come back, when the COVID ended, the business start picking up, they start hiring people. Now they realize they overhire. All right. So all this right now, we're actually living in the situation of a COVID-19 pandemic job correction right now. Okay. So can you even I noticed one of my friend was telling me, she's from Salesforce. She said that Salesforce is also retrenching people. 10% of their Salesforce staff are being laid off last year, and now they are going to be more. And what happens when people get laid off? Companies are not hiring new people, all right? And they make one person work 2 persons' job or 3 persons' job, and just the COVID. All right. So while companies starting to be agile and be alert of the environment, we as employees are badly affected because we are all at the receiving end of all this retrenchment and job cuts, okay, things like that. So if you are being employed, you realize that you'll be overworked. And if you're being retrenched, you're going to find yourself got to start looking for a job all over again. So you really have to look after yourself, okay? So when I say that employee at the point in time, if you're not being retrenched, when you're being overworked, you just have to realize that either you're going to stay this company or you're going to leave. In fact, my friends in Salesforce, Amazon, they're all talking about it, all right? They're saying that, look, if I'm going to be overworked in this company, I better start thinking for another job, all right? So they are right now, some are developing their own skills, self-development, or they're equipping themselves for a new job, all right, looking for a new job again. Or they are just planning for themselves, okay, this company is not going to build me, I have to plan for myself, all right? And whereas those who are being retrenched, we talk about it, is that they just have to start thinking about how can I get back into workforce. You know, with a massive retrenchment, obviously there are a lot more people in the job market, and they have to start thinking about their past network and start reconnecting with them again. So the part is, what are you doing with it, all right? So when you are looking after yourself, it means here is you have to look after your own benefit. If you're working for the company is stretching too much, can you cope with it, with the family, finances, things like that, or you need to plan for your own future. All right. And then at the same time, for those people who are still with the company, you're going to realize that company are expecting you to do a lot more. Okay. And you really have to ask yourself, be aware of your own self-worth. All right. What value can you bring to the company? If let's say you are being retrenched already, also start recollecting what is it that you can bring to the new company too. So in a way, I would say that at this stage, whether you're employee or we're being retrenched, we need to start consolidating our own self-worth. All right, your skills. All right, where are you at? Are you able to build yourself further in this current industry, or do you need to equip yourself to be upgraded, or you need to look for your own contribution to a new company where you start for a new job search? Okay, so this is the matter. This is the time of really reviewing yourself, your own self-worth, and be aware of what you're lacking and what you really need. All right, and at the end of the day, all right, the last part is manage your expectation. So sometimes, you know, unfortunately, when you are being retrenched, sometimes you cannot get back your own job. All right, but you should still be able to move laterally and to be able to still across industry or laterally within the same pay, or sometimes you may even get a pay cut. All right, but set a right expectation. So setting goals for you is not a burden, but it's meant to allow you to be an inspiration to move forward. So for companies who are actually, for those who are being employed, all these are a real problem to them. But let's go back to you as a student. What about you? For you as a student, you know, when companies are facing all these major changes, when customers turn digital, all right, companies are going through digital transformation. Their requirements for their staff are getting more and more stringent, all right? And they have no time to train students like you. In fact, most of my students are talking about internship. They're not getting trained. Some are getting doing photocopy jobs. Some are just doing data entry and doing very mundane tasks. So for you as a fresh grad, going to be graduate or going to be next 1 year or two, you need to manage the expectation. Start asking yourself, you know, the part of what skills you have to offer, and if you don't have, start building out skills and prepare yourself for the your own career. Okay, so this is the part where I want to share with you with regards to this managing coping with uncertainty. I hope this session really helped you and give you insights of how companies manage uncertainty, but at the same time, this uncertainty can really have a ripple effect upon you as a fresh grad, and of course upon the staff, and now it's upon you. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you. Bye-bye.